What's up again, everybody? We have talked about all of the heroes in Monarch and all of their best cards except one. We haven't talked about LEVIA and Shadow Brute. This is the one I saved for last, not because I'm doing like the best for last thing, but this is the one that I've like mulled over the most. And the reason that I've mulled it over the most is because for me, this is the hero that I have found most polarizing. I love the flavor of LEVIA. I love the story of LEVIA. If you haven't read the lore of LEVIA, you should go and go on their website, read the lore. But for me, the play style has been one that I've really had to grapple with and just kind of understand and try to like more and more and more. This is the one that I'm the least drawn to out of all of the heroes. That's why I've spent the least amount of time playing it, and so I've tried changing that over the past couple of weeks. And the more I've played it, the more I've started to kind of come around to LEVIA's playstyle. Both thematically, I've always thought that was pretty cool, but also just functionally understanding like where she comes from. So I'm going to give you my 7 best cards in LEVIA, and I want to be very specific. This does not include generics, and it doesn't include the like standard brute cards. So if you're expecting Ravenous Meataxe, unfortunately Ravenous Meataxe is not on this list because it is a brute only card, and I'm just kind of keeping it to the Shadow Brute card pool. If I did include normal brute cards that are in Monarch, huge shout out a huge shout out to the Ravenous Meataxe and huge shout out to Pulping, because both of those cards are fantastic. But this is just gonna be Shadow Brute cards. So let's get rolling. Let me know your list in a comment below. I'd love to know, especially all you brute players out there. Tell me what you think of LEVIA and all the LEVIA cards. I'm going to start the list off at number 7 with Unworldly Bellow. I think this card is super good. I like the fact that it provides you the ability to make some of these like just standard 6 attack cards even more hard to deal with. Like in LEVIA, when you're, finally deciding to just go for it and attack your opponent again and again and again, oftentimes it's like, okay, I'll attack for 6 and then I'll gain an action point somehow and I'll attack for 6 again. Oftentimes, if you don't have the means of gaining an action point, Unworldly Bellow just basically kind of fills the gap and says, I'm going to play this, turn off Blood Debt maybe, and then play something that attacks for 6, and all of a sudden, now it's attacking for 10, which is super, super good. So I like this card a lot. I tried to avoid putting it in the deck at first, but the more I've played, the more I've gone, you know what, this attack for 6 on my turn, I just want it to be better. So attacking for 10 is a good way of doing that. As long as you can keep your discard pile or your graveyard pretty full, then this card really comes in pretty strong on that. Number 6 is Shadow of Blasphemette. I always want to say Blasphemette, but it's Blasphemette. Shadow of Blasphemette is an interesting one in that it doesn't block, and there's a lot of cards in Shadow Brute that don't block. It doesn't block, but it does allow you to do some good things. One, it fills up your graveyard. It draws and discards you a card. Again, I've always talked about this when I've said these card designs are way better than the previous ones. I love that this draws you and then discards you a card, so it doesn't get you stuck in that rut of like, well, I have to pitch to play this, then I have to play this from hand or maybe an arsenal, and then I have to have a card to discard as well. This gives you that card off the top of your deck, which is really, really good. If you manage to also hit the 6 attack discard, then you get to search your deck for a card with Blood Debt, banish it, and then shuffle your deck. So in essence, this card is attacking for 6, it's filling your graveyard, it's getting you a Blood Debt card into your Banished, which oftentimes might be good. Maybe it's something that you play from Banished, like a Ghostly Visit, or maybe it's something you play from Banished, like a Deep-Rooted Evil, which is really cool. And then it's also turning off Blood Debt, so it does so many things for you. This one bounced around in the list for me. At times it was like really high. Right now it's placed in number 6. This card is super solid though all around. The only downside to this is that it pitches red. I guess there's 2. It pitches red and it doesn't block at all. The not block at all is really painful. That's not a good feeling, not blocking at all, but it provides so much upside with all of the other things that it does, so it definitely deserves a spot on this list. Speaking of things that deserve a spot on the list, Mark of the Beast is like your favorite card when your hand is barren and it's close to the end of the game and you're like, ah crap, what do I do? What do I do? Well, all I have to do is play Mark of the Beast. That's literally it. You turn off Blood Debt. Because if it would be put into your graveyard from anywhere, you banish it instead. You could, if you wanted to, block with this, and then it would go into banished, but there's no need to do that because you can't turn off Blood Debt on your opponent's turn. Well, I guess you technically would turn off Blood Debt. That doesn't matter because you're not taking Blood Debt until your turn anyway. But the fact that this can just be like a 2-card hand solution to not taking Blood Debt damage towards the end of the game is really, really good. In fact, it's like so good that it earned a spot higher than Shadow of Blasmafet, in my opinion, just because this is that saving grace card. You know, like, again, all I have to do is keep this in hand and something that pitches yellow or blue, and I will not die to Blood Debt because this will go to the graveyard and then be banished by itself. So solid card all around. I'm a big fan of this one. I don't know why you wouldn't include it in your deck unless you're just not playing Blood Debt, in which case, what are you doing with LEVIA? It's kind of weird. Okay, Soul Harvest. Why is this card not higher? Namely just because you have to pitch 6 for it, and then you have to have 6 cards in your discard pile to banish, right? That's literally about it. Otherwise, this card is just a backbreaker. You play it, it pitches blue, so you can pitch it and play it late game. Man, this, like, I have been on the receiving end of play this card, attack you for like 10, and like attacking for 10 is just so backbreaking. Pitch 2, I guess 2 blues in this case. Pitch 2 blues, play Soul Harvest, attack for 10, attack for 12. It's just so hard to deal with. You just have to take some amount of damage, and because of that, it's super good. Also, the fact that this is just pitch blue, like, come on, you just auto include this as a 1-of, right? It just pitches blue. Okay, I'll take that for pitching blue, blocking 3. At the worst it can do is pitch for 3 resources or block for 3 damage. Like, that's still really, really good. Also, by the way, this also pops Phantasms if you care. I don't know if you really care that much, but all around this is like so well statted. It can do a lot of things for you. Again, all of these things that banish stuff from discard or from the graveyard, they all turn off Blood Debt as well. So there's all of these multifaceted uses of cards. Brute is just so complex. Let it be known, Brute as a class is just incredibly complex to play. And so all of these cards that do these different things are all so great. All right, we are into the top 3 cards. Number 3 is Writhing Beast Hulk. Writhing Beast Hulk, if you hit, is a game-winning card. Like, this is a win condition. If you hit the discard here, or sorry, if you hit the banish here, you just oftentimes can just win the game, particularly if you can make it stronger than it is, right? So it attacks for 6. As an additional cost, you can banish 3 cards. If one of those is a 6 attack, this gains Dominate, and you probably will win, right? Especially if this is a late game card. You arsenal this somewhere in the mid game, and you wait for like a buff card to cycle around, and you jam this down after the buff card, and you hit your 6, and you're attacking for like 9 with Dominate, and people just kind of go like this, and you win the game, right? This is the reason this is so high. This is a game-winning card more so than all of the cards prior. I mean, even to me, this is more game-winning than the Soul Harvest card we just talked about. Because while Soul Harvest does have like the ability to attack for like 9, 10, that sort of thing on the back end, you'd have to combine that with a Dominate effect, which you can do. I mean, you can definitely do that, but it just gets super expensive, right? Because you got to pitch 6 for that and then more for the other way. It's just like it's too hard to do mid game, late game, like that sort of thing. This is built in, right? It's built in Dominate. If you can buff this attack up, or if you just hold something to pummel it, which is even grosser, then you just win the game. Dominate, pummel, game over, right? So that's why this is the 3rd best card to me in Shadow Brute. 2nd best, though, is even better, namely because it plays into the go again, couple of attacks a turn archetype, and that's Dread Screamer. Dread Screamer red particularly attacks for 6. It allows you to turn off Blood Debt by banishing cards, and if you banish a card with 6 or more to not only turn off Blood Debt, you also give Dread Screamer go again, and that's huge. Attacking for 6 with a guaranteed go again is fantastic, because then it means you don't have to rely on Hooves of the Shadow Beast. You don't have to rely on the Scabskin Leather's rolls to give you an extra action point to attack again for 6 or whatever. You just do this. You just do this. I mean, you hit a Dread Screamer, and then you go wide, and your opponent's like, well, I can't deal with that. I blocked some on the 6, but it still hit. They are attacking me again, perhaps with like a Deep-Rooted Evil from Banished if you don't have cards in hand to attack with. It's coming out of the Banished zone for 6. It's just gross. I mean, it's just really, really good. This is literally the second best card, in my opinion. It's not the best card, but it's the second best card, and this is one that, like, it's very easy to start your list off. You're making your, Shadow Brute Levia list, and you're like, okay, cool, we're going to include this, and Dread Screamers. Cool. And that's our start of our list, because it's that integral to the plan. Now, if you're not playing like a go wide, I mean, it's not even really go wide, it's just like multiple threats a turn, mid-range, more like that. Mid-range Levia, if you're not playing that, if you're just playing like, I don't know, play one big attack with a ton of buffs, then maybe you don't play Dread Screamer. But even in that case, you'd still probably include Dread Screamer, just because it's that good of a card. And finally, the number 1 card in Shadow Brute, in my opinion, is Hooves of the Shadow Beast. You may be looking at me like, well, why in the world would you include this? Because you could always just play the legendary equipment Scabskin Leathers. Like, why would you play Hooves, or why would you put Hooves as number 1 when you could just sub it out for a legendary equipment? And I would posit to you that if you're making that argument to me, if you're saying, why Hooves over all of these other cards because I could just run the legendary instead, I would say to you that if you are trying to figure out between a common equipment or a legendary equipment, and both are like have their own merits or are on equal footing, pun intended, then this card deserves to be this high. Okay, if this card could supplant a legendary from the first set ever made, then we have something to talk about. Hooves of the Shadow Beast, in my opinion, is on that level. It's on that power level. Now, of course, when you're playing the longer game, you're probably going to lean towards the block 3 on the Scabskin Leathers and the possibility of rolling incremental value. But to do that, you have to swap out your gloves for the Gambler's Gloves, right? You have to swap out your arm equipment as well. So really what you're talking about is not just a legendary versus a common. You're talking about a legendary and a majestic on the glove side versus a common that gives you 1 instance of value. By the way, if you haven't read the card yet, if you like whenever you banish a 6 attack, you can destroy this to gain an action point. So you can basically have 2 action points on a turn. Essentially is what you're doing. This also blocks 1, and it also has Battle Worn, so you can block with this and just wait around until it's time. Like I said, you probably in Classic, Constructed, and just longer form games, you probably lean more towards the block 3 capability of Scabskin, but this is so close, in my opinion, to that power level, and it's almost, I don't want to say it's not always a shoe-in in Blitz, but the fact that they're both equal, like you could go Scabskin as a legendary or you could go Hooves of the Shadow Beast as a common, is so good. And it does exactly what you want to do, in my opinion, in Levia, is just present multiple threats on a turn and just have that sort of a blowout turn. So this to me is the best card in Shadow Brute. It's Levia. To me, that is the best. Let me know what you think about this list in a comment below. I have gone back and forth putting these in different spots. There were a couple cards that I dropped. There were a couple cards that I added. Like Deep-Rooted Evil, I've mentioned a couple of times, is a fantastic card. Honestly, just about every card in the Shadow Brute card pool is, in my opinion, pretty necessary to like making Levia super solid. Maybe not every single card, but there's like so many. There's just a huge proliferation of Shadow Brute cards that are like, yeah, I could include that. Like Gravel and Growl, there's a Boneyard Marauder. All of those have a place, and so it's hard to pin down the top 7. But for me, this has been my consistent top 7 for about a week now. So let me know in a comment below what you think. I would love to hear your own opinions, particularly those of you who are like fans of Brute since the beginning. I would love to know what you think in a comment below. Hey, don't forget to hit the like and the subscribe here. I forgot at the beginning of this video to turn on the subscriber count and to turn on the the Patreon thing. So maybe I'll cut that in. Maybe this won't even be in the thing. Maybe I'll somehow find a way to just like slip that in there. I hope you enjoy this video. Oh, also I should say tomorrow we have a 4,000 subscriber giveaway stream. We're just gonna crack packs. We're gonna give them away, 3 separate boxes worth of packs, which is gonna be exciting. I'm pretty sure literally today at some point my son will be born. Like, we are within the span of maybe the next 10 hours he will be born, and that's like a guarantee. It's gonna be sometime within the next like 10 hours. So I'm gonna be super tired on that stream. It's gonna be fantastic. It's gonna be so fun. The only reason I won't do that stream, or the only thing that would keep me from doing that stream, is if like there's something that gets in the way, some complication with him. So hopefully he's, I mean, everything's kind of panned out, so hopefully he stays healthy and Destiny stays healthy. But we'll play it by ear. Nevertheless, tomorrow at 8 p.m. Central Time, 8 p.m., I will hopefully be going live and we'll be giving away some packs. So if you want to hang out for that, set your calendars, set an alarm, and come hang out with me. As always, everybody, thanks for watching.